Hi everyone. The Kemper Profiler. Some say it's or has been, the most significant advancement in guitar emulation technology, or amp guitar emulation technology in the last 20 years. Well, I don't have one, but Steve White in Seattle, he has one. I'll be really interested in this because I've always been up with the guitar emulation stuff, but not with the Kemper, of course, but starting with the early days with Line 6, Tech 21, all of that. And I've used it for recording and playing live, and they have a place you can use them. But to a certain degree, I always felt that nothing beat the real thing. Of course, having 20 amps with you when you're playing live, or it is never an option, especially for the ordinary mortals like somebody like me. But the Kemper Profiler is the one in all. It is supposed to be anyway.
So it's interesting you mentioned the line six, the line products, because I was wondering whether to get a profiler like this or a modeler, an amp modeler like the line ones are. Yeah, so all that kind of stuff was really interesting to me around that time. Of course, I had tube amps, but for the reason you said, you can only have so many tube amps. There's a limit to how many actual physical tube amps you can have. But if you've got a modeler or a profiler, you can have 1,000 or more amps essentially baked into it. But modeling, from what I understand it, modeling an amp is essentially modeling the whole behavior of the amp, all throughout its entire range of parameters. The difference between that and a profile is that the profile has been taken from an amp, a real amp, with a particular setting on it. So the profile has been taken, from an amp set to clean, and then a different profile could be taken from the same amp set to higher gain. And every
So you would have those. You would have to have access to
yeah,
the amplifiers to profile them.
yeah. So basically, there's creating the profile and then consuming the profile. So all I do is consume profiles, but some people um, create profiles, and one of the best known, probably one of the best known, is a guy called Michael Britt who plays guitar for Lone Star. Do you know Lone Star?
Yeah.
He's gone to these amps and he's taken his Kemper profiler and he's set up the actual tube amp with a cabinet, right? So the amp head and the cabinet, and put a microphone in front of it, and then he's connected that into the profiler. And what the profiler does is it sends a signal to the amp, so through the instrument cable to the amp. So basically, the Kemper is pretending to be a guitar, and it's sending these horrible squealy noises. If you listen to what it's doing, it's like a UFO kind of weird science fiction noises coming out of it, um, that are very loud. And then, of course, the mic then picks up the output from the speaker cabinet and sends it back to a different part of the profiler. So the profiler is outputting a test signal, listening to what's coming in through the mic, and getting a feel for what's going on, for how the amp and the cabinet interact with each other as the Kemper's sending all these signals: quiet, loud, high pitched, low pitched, weird, strong signals to cause overdrive, quiet signals for if you've got it on a clean setting.
So how authentic do you think the profiles are?
That's a good question, and of course it's always going to be subjective. If you turn the volume up so that it's respectably loud, not so that it hurts your ears, but so that you can really feel that the cabinet is doing some work,
Mm.
then I would say it more or less approximates to the kind of feel you're going to get from a tube amp cabinet. But But you asked really, you think you were asking about how authentic is it? How well does it match the actual original the original amp that
Hmm.
it's profiling? And the only ones I can really compare are the Bogner. See, so I've got a Bogner Ecstasy 20th
So
20th
can I
anniversary.
just butt in there? So you've got the profiler, which is the modeler, and then you need a power amp in between that and the speaker.
Yes, this particular model that I've got here is not the power model. It's not the model that's got a built-in power amp. It outputs a line level signal, the actual Kemper profiler. And then underneath it, you see where it says Samson down there.
Hmm.
So I've got the profiler sitting on a power amp, a 200-watt power amp, which is just a solid state power amp. And that's what you're meant to use with it. You're meant to use a solid state power amp because all of the profiling, all of the emulation of a tube head and the cabinet all takes place inside the Kemper, inside that thing there. So the only thing you've got to do after that is make it loud. And what you want is just a very, very nice, uncoloured, linear amp. And so something like that, Samson, just any kind of solid state power amp is
Yeah.
what you want. And then of course that power amp feeds. In my case, it feeds a couple of guitar cabinets. I've got it coming out left and right because sometimes I use stereo effects, so I want signals coming out of two speakers.
Hmm.
So we've just looked at my setup, which has an external solid state power amp, but you can get a version of the profiler that's got an actual power amp built into it. It's got a 600-watt power amp, which was a bit too loud for me, so I just got a 200-watt external power amp for about, well, cheaper than it would have been to get the extra thing, the extra model.
And you have a PRS there. Do you want to take us through some of the examples of some of the profiles?
So this is a clean profile, and it's a company I'm not familiar with. The amp is by Third Power. Have you heard of Third Power?
No.
It's called a Third Power Dreamweaver, and he's got it
Mhm.
on a clean setting. And like I say, the profile has got it's capturing the snapshot of an amp in it with a particular setting.
Mm.
However, you can turn the gain up. I don't know if you can see the ring of lights around
Yes.
around the gain button,
Mm.
but you can, good. So as I turn that gain button up, the ring of lights gets longer. This is the same amp with a bit more gain on it, but he's also got a foot pedal. He actually connected a foot pedal to it, an overdrive pedal. So it's not that much different, really. It's a bit crunchier. But of course, we can make it even crunchier by just turning up the volume a little bit. This profile's been taken straight from a clean Fender Champion, so it should be more authentic. It should sound more like what it sounds like. But of course, as you dig in, you get it's starting to dirty up a bit. If you keep it quiet. So this is the Friedman. It's a Friedman BE, Friedman BE, which is I think it's probably 100 watt that he profiled, but the only one I could see on their website was the 50 watt. Do that. Let's turn the gain up on this one. Turn it right up to the top. Do you like that?
How about a Soldano? Is there a Soldano one in there? I'm not familiar with the Soldano models, but I'm familiar with Soldano sounds.
Okay, so it might or might not sound familiar to you. Does that sound like one?
Yes. I like that one. So tell me, so this being a solid state setup, do you find that the valve emulation is convincing, or is it in just like the Tech 21 and the Line 6s for me, which is kind of there but not really?
The Kemper Profiler does behave like a tube amp, like it. When the tubes. I mean, I'm putting that in inverted commas. When the profiled tubes get really really overdriven and they start to soak up power, you do get that power sag. As you really dig in and get some really really overdriven and saturated sounds out of a tube amp, the the tube amps are soaking up. They need so much power to produce this clipped signal that there is like a noticeable drop in volume. It kind of just drops down a bit. It's still obviously very loud and very meaty and very thick sound, but you can feel this kind of sag.
Yeah.
And then as you let the chord ring out, it sags, and then you can hear it come back up again as the volume kind of catches its breath and returns. So that's a definite phenomenon that you get with real tube amps, and the Profiler does that. When I switch back to a real tube amp, I think to myself, oh yeah, that sounds so much better than the Kemper does, and so I'll kind of play that for a length of time. But then after a bit, then I'll put the Kemper back on, and as long as, like I said before, as long as you turn it up so that it's reasonably loud, like I said, respectably loud, then it can sound impressive. So if I was to play the real Fender, I would probably prefer it while I was playing it, and then when I get back to the Kemper, I would think, no, this is fine, this is absolutely fine. So it's hard to know which one I actually do prefer, but I think I probably do prefer the real thing. I would say there's about 20, at least 20 profiles of that Bogner Ecstasy on the Kemper with different settings, and they're good. I think they're probably a bit more compressed than the real thing. They probably sound like it would sound on a record than the real thing does.
So would it be correct, you think, to say the Kemper would be a great live tool, a great recording tool,
Yeah.
where the subtleties of, let's say, the organic speaker and valve sound are essential? Let's just say here, I love plugging into my Two Rock Classic Reverb or my Bartel Roseland, and even the Fender Champ at the bottom there. Some I love plugging into those and normally I'm playing with clean sounds, and I love the organicness and everything. So it sounds to me like that may be lost within the profiler, but in places like, when you play live, that's lost anyway.
You've got your tube amp, and you've got it set up the way you want it at home, and then you take it to the studio or you take it on the road, and it can be difficult. It's in a different environment. I mean, even the voltage of the house might be different, and that can affect the power going into the tubes and things like that. So you might not necessarily get exactly the sound that you're used to, but with the profiler, you can get that profile in there, get it loaded up, get it set up the way you want it, and then it's going to be, because it's digital, it's not an analog thing anymore, is it? So it's all solid state. So you're going to be able to reproduce the sound that you're used to in the studio and on stage much more readily. And then, of course, the other one is just sheer volume. Like we said before, just the sheer volume, or rather number of profiles of amps that you can be taking on tour with you. It would be impossible to take 20 different setups. You can take hundreds, over 1,000, I'm sure, with the profile. Those are the benefits of it, is that convenience.
And it seems to me the real benefit of that is the fact that you can record your own profiles.
So I could profile, for example, these two THDs if I wanted to.
So Steve, if you could summarize for us the journey of yourself and the profiler.
I like really good technology, technology that's clever, and well made and excellent. That kind of thing interests me, and I'm happy to spend a premium or a little bit more to get kind of something that's really good. So I had been thinking about. I had heard about this Kemper, and there was some controversy over whether it sounded as good as a tube amp. So I watched videos where people compared. They did like a test, like a blind test, listening to tube amps, listening to the Kemper in different orders. And there was one particular video by a reputable couple of guitarists that it seemed like, wow, it was really fooling them. I mean, they consistently guessed wrong as to which sound was the Kemper and which sound was the actual tube amp. So that got me interested. But I was also comparing the Kemper with those other, those modeler devices that we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got all excited about getting one of those or getting the Kemper. So I'd pretty much decided I was going to get something. And you know what it's like that with us all. We get to the point where we've more or less decided that we want to buy something, and then nothing's going to stop you because your heart's set on it. But all those things, I mean, it was going to be a new piece of technology. It was going to be related to music and guitars, which I'm interested in. It was going to be something that I could, sit down with and get used to and learn what all the knobs did. Just watching some of the tutorial videos where it talked about things like power sagging and how it had controls for that and for all kinds of things, just the noise gate on the input, the various outputs, how you would monitor it, how you would use it in a live setting in the studio, all that kind of thing. It was all very, very interesting. So my heart was just very much set on it, and it wasn't going to be contingent on, it wasn't going to be dependent on it being as good sounding as a tube amp in real life, right? I decided I was going to get one, and I decided I was going to love it. The other thing about the using the profiler is I only use it in this environment that you can see right here. So it's just for me to play around with, to enjoy. I haven't even gotten around to recording with it. I will at some point. I'll record with it, but I think I'll prefer to record with the actual tube amps anyway. I think I'd prefer to do that anyway. But I will. I'll try it out with recording. and I don't play live with it, so I can't speak to how well it performs live. But there's plenty of other people who can. But yeah, I'm happy with the Profiler. I think it's really cool. It's a really nice piece of kit.
Great, great. Well, thank you very much. And I think that's explained everything. You bought one, you've lived with it, and you like it. And while you were talking, I was thinking about that would fit in this type of environment for myself. That would fit in my um, uh, type of environment for myself. Yeah. But and to an extent, I do think digital technology, digital modeling has got to a very, very high quality stage. So thank you very much. And what time is it in Seattle over there?
20 past 4 in the morning. So
Oh my good God.